2. Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. It's a busy week around here as we are putting our head coach and our partner in crime on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation into the Ring of Honor this week. So lots of stuff around here about Coach Billick and Super Bowl 35 and more memories. And this is a guy I got some more memories of, as well as the longtime Oriole broadcaster who always makes his way onto our airways because of our long friendship. He is out in the land of Cleve calling college football and basketball and watching baseball and doing Cavaliers and bleeding with the Browns. We welcome my man, Michael Reghi, back on. You can find him out on Twitter at Michael Reghi. I always say see you later, and you always come back, man. What's going on, brother? How are you?
No, there's no see you laters in perpetuity, buddy. I always greatly appreciate joining you and all the good folks of Baltimore.
Well, all right, let's get this where it is. First off, I have some pizza from Pizza John's here, which is very rare that I actually have some for some lunch. And I brought my wife some pizza, so just want to give them a shout-out. I'm going to eat some pizza and learn about the Cleveland Browns because I was in a hotel room in Kansas City after we lost, watching them play the other night. And I've done 6 months of, like, the joke with all of you was at the end, so, Super Bowl, right, this year, right? And I know the Cleveland fans sort of took it to heart, right? And then you got to go play. Where are you on watching this team? Because, I mean, they played the Rams tough, and it's easy to say same old Browns when they're 1-2, but they come in here and lose, then they're 1-3. And, look, I saw the schedule. The schedule's brutal on them in the early part, and they have some ease in the end. But this is worry time, I would think, if you're in the Cuyahoga region, right?
Yeah, well, Nestor, look, I mean, the expectation level and the demands to become a playoff team this year, and as if that, I mean, to me, there you go. If the Browns become a playoff team this year, then I'm going to say, yeah, job well done, and now you are on the rise. But to me, to take it any further than that was absolute just tomfoolery, to be honest with you. I got a first-year head coach in Freddie Kitchens, as everybody knows. I'm a big John Dorsey guy, but I questioned that move and turning this over to Kitchens when he got the job after, Greg Williams was let go. But here's the deal. He got the job because of his relationship, and a very good one, I might add, with one Baker Mayfield. When Kitchens was named the offensive coordinator last year, Mayfield was given the starting quarterback job after the Tyrod Taylor experiment lasted but a couple of games. They took off, and offensively, they were innovative, they were creative, and bottom line, Nestor, they were productive. Well, we haven't seen that yet this year, and everybody is kind of scratching their head and wondering why. Baker has not been accurate. He's hitting about 56% of his throws, and in all our conversations down through the years, and we're talking about quarterbacks in the NFL or even at a top-notch college program, to me, that's the number one thing I want to see. How accurate are you? Can you deliver the football and get it on your receivers and allow them to make plays for you? So that's been an issue so far. The offense has the offensive line. There were some changes there by trading Kevin Zeitler, and who's a very good interior offensive lineman as a guard now with the New York Giants. So there's things that just have not, in the first 3 football games, manifested itself to say, oh yeah, this team's going to, they're going to now start taking care of the AFC North, get in the playoffs, win 10 football games at least, and they're on their way. Well, let's pump the brakes on that a little bit, because as we're seeing, it hasn't shown up as of yet in the first 3 football games.
Well, Mike, I was watching the game the other night, and kind of a bit of a comedy show for my wife, because I'm like, I watch Baker Mayfield, and I see the cockiness and all that, and then I see Odell Beckham Jr. and sort of all the cockiness and all that, and I think to myself, man, these guys are easy to hate. I mean, as a Ravens fan, And the season's 3 weeks old, but it feels like the Bengals are nowhere to be found. It feels like the Steelers, and this is the strangest of times, right? I mean, we all have the same thing with the Steelers. You look at that and say, it's been, 35 years or 45 years, however long it's been, where they haven't put up a whole lot of 3-13s and 4-12s and 5-11s. And it certainly feels like that one's coming. And we go there next week as well. We have Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati back-to-back-to-back after, putting up a nice fight out in Kansas City. We're trying to figure out if we're a good team, too. We're trying to figure out if we're a 2-1 en route to 9-7 or 2-1 en route to 13-3 because the Steelers and the Bengals are that bad and they're going to get out of the way. I don't know what the Browns are, but I know that if the Ravens believe they're a better football team than the Browns this week, now they have to go out and show that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how the Browns get to 10 wins if they start at 1-3. I really don't.
Well, and again, now, so after the trip into Baltimore on Sunday, they come home for Seattle and then out for another Monday nighter to San Francisco and then get New England after a bye. So those are your first 7. Now, I will say one would think that, there's Buffalo and there's Miami and there's Arizona in addition to Cincinnati twice, Pittsburgh twice, and, of course, the other one with the Ravens in the second half. So,
well, where you make hay is if the Browns really are the second-best team, they can win all 4 games in the division, right? The other games, right?
Nestor, I thought this to me. If again, you are expecting to be and take these strides, if you're a playoff team, to me, you got to go 4-2 in the division. And they've already, and then not division games, but they're all. And to me, you better go 6-2 at home. I mean, I don't know. I pretty much lay that down almost as any team must do. You better be able to be above 500 in your division. And to me, if you really want to be a player and be a factor come January, you damn well better go 6-2 at home. I mean, 5-3 at the worst. They're already 0-2. So again, I mean, look, everybody's expectation level, I don't think included a lot of the transitionary situation that had to go on with this team. And right now, as I said, Baker Mayfield, and there's reasons for it. Again, the offensive line they protected him tremendously well last year. So far this year, he's getting a lot of heat. He's leaving the pocket too soon, Nestor. He's not staying. You got to stay in the pocket in the NFL, man. You just do.
Unless you're Lamar Jackson.
Well, okay. Well, and we'll see. I like Lamar, but as we know, like Baker Mayfield, Lamar's got a long way to go before we start putting him with the quarterbacking greats of the game. So we'll see. But Baker's got to get some things cleaned up because they've shown up now as potential warts that weren't here last year.
Yeah, and I think all the warts that came with him and with the package of the cockiness and the ability and all that was, to your point, let's put great players around him. Well, it felt like they were doing that in the offseason, and it feels like the sum and the parts, and then there's the coaching part of this. And you're an old guy like me. I like, knowing that my head coach can be a head coach. I know there have been some circumstances. I mean, we got one here in John Harbaugh, who was never a head coach. Was never an offensive or defensive coordinator. Andy Reid was never a coordinator. Went from a quarterback coach, and has done this successfully. So they're a precedent, but there's so many. We talk about quarterbacks that miss. How many Tim Couches or Joey Harringtons or Achilles? Name any of those guys. How many of these coaches are the next great thing? And they're not. And I don't know that you become the next great thing as a coach because you're the hot coordinator over 12 weeks in some season, or quite frankly, because the $100 million quarterback thinks you're cool, right?
Yeah, well, no, that's exactly right. And it doesn't usually work that way. So, real simple. Are the Browns going to fall prey to that in hiring, the hot, cool offensive coordinator because he and the number 1 overall pick, the quarterback that you want to be your franchise guy, and Lord knows the Cleveland Browns need that. I mean, I could make a case because we both know him and good quarterback. I make a case the Browns haven't even had a good NFL quarterback since our man Vinny Testaverde back in the 90s after Bernie Kosar. I mean, that's how long it's been. None of them have certainly shown themselves to be quarterbacks of that magnitude. So look, this city, this franchise, anybody that loves the Cleveland Browns, absolutely begging, aching for that. Mayfield, again, you got to see it play out, Nestor. I'm sorry, I just can't. I never have. You said I'm an old guy. I cannot anoint a quarterback after half a good season or even a good season. You have to continually be productive. You have to keep understanding that it's about getting your team into the playoffs consistently. And until a quarterback shows he can or can't do that, I really am going to keep the book open on who he is and what he is, quite honestly.
Michael Reghi is our guest. We're spending the week with some Ravens on Tuesday night at Greenmount Station with Pat Ricard. You can find that out in the BuyAToyota.com audio vault. Next Monday night, we're at Adams Jeep with Nick Boyle, and this week we're honoring head coach Brian Billick for all that we're doing Ring of Honor stuff here, right? I mean, you remember sort of when the Ravens got off the boat, right? Like you came in right around that point, and you came in from Cleveland. There was a lot of Modell this and Angelos that, and Jack Kent Cook was still around, for the early part of that, and so you come in here and see what the Ravens have become. That now our head coach is going Ring of Honor. Ernest Biner's in the Ring of Honor thanks to Art Modell, but we don't put a lot of guys in our Ring of Honor here. But we've got a nice sort of litany of players from the Ed Reeds and the Ray Lewises and the John Ogdens all the way down. This is the matchup itself looked delicious all the way through. I really didn't think this was going to be sort of a do or die for the Browns. You know what I mean? Like that this type of game on the road would come at 1-2. I didn't really envision that. I really did think I bought in. I thought they were going to be a good team. I thought they could hold serve at home. I certainly didn't think that that they were going to lose the opener the way they did. I mean that
was an embarrassment.
That changes everything, right? Changes expectations.
It did, and you lose that by 30. And then now, of course, they got the Jets the next one, and were able to do what they needed to do there. But you come back and lose at home again to the defending NFC champion and half of the Super Bowl matchup last year. So I didn't think the Browns are going to win that football game. But as I mentioned a moment ago, Nestor, I mean, here's the thing. Starting this Sunday, these next four are going to determine the Browns' fate this year. And again, they need to go 2-2 in these next four. At Baltimore, right? At home to Seattle, at San Francisco in a Monday nighter, and then going to see Brady and Belichick in New England. Now, there you go. Now, if they drop three of those, now they're sitting at 2-5, and I don't care whom they're playing in the second half. It's going to be difficult to rebound yourself from that. So, yeah, these next four are important for them, and yet there's things internally that you got to keep a real close eye on. Again, with Freddie Kitchens, his offensive coordinator Todd Monken, defensively, with the exception of Tennessee in the second half, not bad. Certainly not terrible. Solid job even the other night with all four of their starting DBs, Nestor, out. So they may get a couple of them back for when they come into Baltimore on Sunday, but, all four of the starting DBs were out, so they played backups at both corners and both safeties. And
we're familiar with that here too, Mike, by the way, just so you know. Jimmy Smith, Marlon Humphrey, Davon. So we're doing that as well, but I would say on the Cleveland side, I've seen a lot of these games, man. I have you on twice a year, every year, all of you from Cleveland who I see when I come out there, Christmas time and all that. I've seen a lot of years where there's no talent. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is, by far, I look up and down the roster and say, all right, they finally have good football players, because most years it's these sort of quad A, third round, fourth round draft pick, undrafted guy, washed up guy that decided he wanted to come play quarterback of the month with the next quarterback of the month. And, this feels like I look up, I see Landry and Beckham and Chubb and Mayfield and Bitonio, and I go to Denzel Ward and Vern, and I mean, these are Myles Garrett. These are real players here, right?
Oh yeah. Well, no, absolutely. This is by far the most talented Cleveland Browns squad since they came back in 1999. I mean, there's not even a comparison to that. That's how bad it's
Well, then
been
you
for
think
the
there's
last
no
2
way this is
decades.
2-14, but you
Oh,
also better think that this better not be
But
5-11.
again, Nestor, right now, because you know how it is, because of everything you're saying and the expectations, and yes, John Dorsey has done a hell of a job in getting real NFL talent on this roster. But with that, 8-8's not going to be good enough. To a lot of folks, 9-7's not going to be good enough. Again, coming off a 7-8-1 last year, when you put your franchise quarterback on the football field, and he played well, and now you add Odell Beckham. You got Nick Chubb is. I love Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb to me is one of the top running backs in the NFL, and that was big part of it. You'll hear about it more as you get ready for this one. You're going to hear about 1st and goal the other night, late in the football game at the 4-yard line of the LA Rams, and Freddie Kitchens throws the football 4 times and doesn't give Nick Chubb a touch. Hell, I would have given him 2 touches because to me, I think he's getting in the end zone if you give him a couple of touches. But they didn't do it, and that's become a very, very big yesterday, and Kitchens got real defensive about that. He got defensive about a lot of things when he was asked why.
Well, doesn't he look like he's in over his head at that point 3 weeks into this where, I don't even know what he looks like. I mean, it goes back to – let me – by the way, Michael Reghi is here, my dear friend. You can find him out, Michael Reghi on Twitter. He's calling the BYU-Toledo game. He does college football. He loves the Browns. Every year I can bring you on, it kind of reminds me of my Orioles period, where like I would go on a radio program in Cleveland. I would talk about the Orioles, like about the real players, and Nick Markakis this and Brian Roberts that, whatever. And then it always comes back to, well, who are they owned by? How are they run? Yeah. And with the Browns, I mean, this time last year, they had a different coach, right? And then this time, the second game, they had a different coach. So now they're on their 3rd coach since the last time we saw them, since I was in your town putting Ray Lewis into the Hall of Fame, and there were Hard Knocks, billboards up all over downtown. You're on your 3rd coach since then. I'm still not ready to concede that even with all this talent, Odell Beckham and Baker Mayfield and these big personalities and all this stuff and the genius GM, that they're not poorly run. And that leads to hiring a head coach who looks like he's in over his head.
And that's always the caveat to me that you just mentioned it. I don't even need to add to it much. That shines the brightest to me. I agree with you. And until we find out again about Freddie Kitchens, because listen, Nestor, we've seen all kinds of talented football teams in our time during and covering and calling games and reporting on the National Football League, and they haven't done squat but lose a lot because they're just not the right fit coaching-wise. And again, I mean, 3 football games. Look, he did a hell of a job as an OC last year. I'm not going to take that away from him because that would be erroneous and not truthful on my part. But, again, that doesn't always necessarily relate to, you give him the head coaching job now because, man, you got to have, as you know very well, that room has got to believe in you 100%. And as we know about NFL players, when things start to go awry a little bit at the first even hint or sight of trouble, then a lot of guys start really, really looking at what's being done day to day in terms of in that room and how it's done and why it's done philosophically on the practice field, and how does that relate to games? So we're going to see.
Well, and a lot of big personalities that would swallow up the Brian Billocks and the John Grudens and the Andy Reids and the John Harbaughs of the world. They don't want the Odell. They don't want
right.
that. They don't want their quarterback to be in the hot tub club. You know what I mean? Like,
I know, and all those guys you named, every one of them has won a Super Bowl, been in the Super Bowl, in the playoffs repeatedly. So I'll just say maybe there's something to that then, huh?
He is Michael Reghi, and speaking of the Peter principle and promoting to that position, any thoughts on the Orioles at $1.10 losses right now? I know you had the tribe going on, right?
Yeah. The Indians have given that. They just let a couple of guys last year walk. That I thought, how is this team going to be able to stay competitive? Now, look, they play in the American League Central, right? So that gives you 19 against Detroit and 19 against Kansas City every year. So that's 38 baseball games that you're probably going to win 25 of. But anyway.
Well, it's amazing. I was out in Kansas City this weekend. The Royals,
yeah.
I looked over the top of Arrowhead down at Royal Stadium. I'm like, man, it used to be a ballpark, right? I mean, it's amazing, this tanking thing. And I know you know it in the NBA as well. But what when the cupboard is bare, it's really, really bare. And we see that around here, and I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair to the fans.
No, it's not. And the thing that I hate is that I've read a lot of things nationally, and I see all the pictures. I used to love, especially this time of year, during my 8 years calling the woes, Nestor, I love this time of year at the yard. I mean, what could be better? You got the sun setting, the temperature getting a little bit cooler, and by game time, during BP, the sun is starting to set, and game time. I love September at Oriole Park at Camden Yards during my time there. And of course, my first year in '97, the wire to wire with Davy Johnson, and then there you go. Now that was different. That's a veteran baseball team, but then, as we know, since then, Davy Johnson's gone. Things go awry between the front office, the owner, and him, and he's gone, and then the slide starts.
It's only been 22 years. That's all.
Well, sometimes it's, and you think, well, in a tradition-rich franchise like this, we'll pull ourselves out of this quickly. No, sometimes it doesn't work that way. I've told you this a million times. I feel for the Oriole fans because, again, I got 8 years, man. I got immersed the passion and the excitement and the love of Orioles baseball, and like I said, all the empty seats. This should be time when you're either, if not trying to win the division, be a part of, the wild card stuff. And there's 5,000 people in the yard. That's tough.
Michael Reghi, you can find him out on Twitter calling college football games, BYU, Toledo, man. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you learn all these flip cards, all these names, all the pronunciations. I mean, man.
Got to work. Got to prep, Nestor. You got to prep it all week long, which is, what I'm doing. I'll talk with the head coaches of both squads, the offensive, defensive coordinators of both squads for about an hour and a half all week long, and then, man, get out there and do it. Love college football, though. It's great, and there's some things wrong with that, too, but like everything, but I still never lose my passion for calling the game.
Saturday in the park. Think it was the 4th of July. He's Michael Reghi. Hey, man, appreciate you. I am coming out to Cleveland Christmas week. I'm hoping that the game means a lot, right? And I'm trying to get a reservation for a Christmas Story house because I've, never been there, but I figure it's Christmas week.
Check it out. Yeah. Well, let me know. We'll see if we can get together and get you in there.
Just shoot your eye out. See you later, Michael Reghi. Be well.
Thank you, Nestor. See you later as well.
See you later. There he goes, Michael Reghi, in the land of Cleve in Northern Ohio. The Browns chugging along at 1-2, although the Indians going to fight it out all week with Tampa, who has no fans at all, even when they're in the pennant race. 30 games over 500. No one goes to the ballpark in Tampa. It's crazy. Baseball, it's nuts. We'll see if we can get the number 2 pick, because it's not as good as the number 1 pick. The BuyUToyota.com audio vault is there 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. Baltimore Positive around the corner as well. This week at State Fair, early in the morning with Howard County Executive Calvin Ball. Next week, John Sarbanes, Ben Carden will be over in Catonsville at Jennings, as well as downtown at Fadley's on Wednesday with John Sarbanes. So go to BaltimorePositive.com, listen to Sarah Heminger, listen to Brandon Scott, Baltimore City Council President this week, and mayoral candidate, talking all things our hometown. I'm eating Pizza John's Pizza. I'm drinking my water out of my Strategic Factory cup. and talking sports with Michael Reghi. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.